I think it was last year that I did a video where I talked about my camera setup for YouTube and the main camera that I use when I'm doing these talking heads, whether I'm indoors or I'm outdoors. And even though it's pretty much the same, I have started using a different lens, and some of you have commented about how my footage looks different and what am I using because it looks really good. And so in this video I'm just going to run through my setup that I use for YouTube, and then I will leave links in the description to everything that I talk about in the video. So the main piece of gear is my camera, obviously, and that is my Sony a7S III. Now, I've had this Sony a7S III pretty much since it came out, and even though I'm potentially looking to get a different camera, I still love the Sony a7S III because I love shooting in S-Log3, which again contributes to the overall look of the footage as well as the next piece of gear that I'll talk about. But I shoot in S-Log3 and then I color grade with Film Convert Nitrate. But before I use Film Convert Nitrate, I actually use Cinematch to just color correct the footage. So making sure that my exposure is set correctly. And I also try and do this in the camera as well by using my zebras mainly. And so yeah, I will use Cinematch just to make sure that my exposure is set correctly, and then I use Film Convert Nitrate to then convert that S-Log3 footage into a color grade. And Film Convert Nitrate is awesome. I've been using it for years, like I've said in previous videos. And so the other thing that's slightly changed from what I talked about previously is the fact that I don't tend to use diffusion filters anymore. So I was very keen on making my footage look a certain way, and I would have a filter which already had mist or diffusion in that filter. So I'd use a variable ND, and it would always be a mist variable ND or a diffusion variable ND. I don't do that anymore because I use Hazy from Film Convert as well, and then I can just dial in as much or as little as I want based on what the footage is looking like. So that's another difference that I've made to the overall look of my footage as well. Now, before I talk about the lens that I use, which is a massive part of this look that you guys are noticing recently, I want to tell you about a tool that I've also been using for years, which is a massive part of my workflow, and I use it in pretty much every single video of mine, and that is Artlist. I was mainly using it for music and sound effects previously, but since Artlist has expanded so much recently to include AI tools, it's become a place that you can really get everything you need when creating your videos, whether that's using assets in the actual edit or using them to help you plan your videos. Plus you get 2 extra months free on an annual plan when you use my link in the description. So imagine this, you might be looking for a stock clip for your video while you're doing a talking head, and you're looking but you're not finding something that's quite right. Instead of settling for something that's close enough, you can just create your own in a very cinematic way, because just recently Artlist added an update called VO3, which basically gives you the opportunity to generate cinematic videos, but these videos are also with synced audio. And what that means is that you can create videos that look realistic, and you can either do it just with text or you can drop an image in as a starting point. You can also use actual terms like tracking shot or extreme close-up, and VO3 understands exactly what that means in shot terms. And the videos that you create are going to have smooth motion and synced audio. Check this out. It's pretty cool, right? You could hear the music and the sound effects and the ambient tones, which were all kind of synced to what you could actually see on the screen. So if you want to try it out for yourself and get 2 extra months free, VO3 is available in the AI suite and the Max Pro subscription plans. And do use the link in the description, because not only will you be helping me and supporting my channel, you will get your 2 months extra on your annual plan. So that alone is worth it. Now, let me tell you about the lens that I use, which is giving the footage this specific look, which you've noticed from the lens that I used to use, which was the Sony 16 to 35mm G Master lens, which is still a very good lens, and it's the one that I tend to take with me if I'm traveling or if I'm going out and about, because I want to be as quick as possible whilst I'm out or if I'm traveling, and I only want to take one lens if I'm traveling so that I can travel as light as possible. But the lens that I'm using right now, and the lens that I've been using in my most recent videos, and even though I've had this lens for 4 or 5 years, and I mainly use it when I'm filming my product shots, so when I'm doing my reviews and you see the close-ups that I do with the products that I'm reviewing. And The lens is the the Zeiss 40mm close focusing Batis lens. So the 40mm Batis f2 close focusing range lens. And the reason that I like it is because these Zeiss Batis lenses have such a different look, and there's something just really smooth about them, and they just look gorgeous. And the reason that I use the 40mm is because it has that close focusing on it. So when I'm doing the product shots, for example, I can get quite close to the lens and show the detail of a product without having to get a macro lens out. So, and as you can see now, the footage, even for a talking head, just looks so good. So I started using it more for a talking head, and the reason that I did it, okay, I'll be honest, the reason that I started using it for my talking heads was because I just finished filming an unboxing, and my 16-35 was in my bag, and it was in the cube, and I had other bags on top of it, and I just couldn't be bothered to get it out of my bag. I was being very lazy. And normally I wouldn't film a talking head with a 40mm, which is why I tend to use the 16-35, because I put it in 24mm, and that tends to be the focal length that I would use for a talking head. But I just couldn't be bothered to get it out of my bag. And so I just thought, you know what, I'm just going to do it on this. I'll push it back as far as possible and just see what it looks like. And I actually really liked it. And so I thought, you know what, yeah, I'm going to keep using it for my talking heads. And so this is why, that is the real reason why I started using it for my talking heads, because I've had it for years, like I said, and I've never really used it for talking head. So there are two more pieces of gear that I tend to use, and it's basically a monitor. So when I'm outdoors, I always have a monitor with me, because trying to see the screen on my Sony a7S III is impossible, especially if it's sunny and the camera is further away from me. I just cannot see myself and make sure that I'm still in focus, for example. And so I use the Neewer f700 monitor, and this monitor is so good in direct sunlight. It's so clear, you can really see yourself. But there are times where it just gets a little bit too bright, and then you just can't, it makes it a little bit more difficult to see, but it's still far better than using the screen on the camera. And so Neewer recently sent me out the monitor hood, which goes with, it's a dedicated hood that goes with the monitor, and it makes such a difference. I have absolutely no problems seeing the screen whilst I'm outside and I'm filming outdoors. So I did a video about this monitor as well, which I'll link in the description, because it is a great monitor. And there are so many tools in it for exposing your footage correctly, which is great for when you then have to come to color grading. So yeah, I'll put a link in the description to that video, because it's well worth checking out that monitor. So the last piece of gear that you may or may not have seen me wearing in previous videos is my microphone. So this is my mic, and it's the Hollyland Lark M2. I also have the M2S, and depending on what I'm wearing, I kind of interchange and swap between the two. But if I'm wearing clothing where it's not that easy for me to attach the mic, then I wear it like this on the pendant, and then yeah, I can get good audio. And the reason it has this sticker on it, if you're wondering, is because when I was doing the review, I think it was last year. Was it last year that this came out? I think it was last year. When I was doing the review, I mentioned about the fact that they come with a bunch of stickers, and you can hide the Hollyland logo if you want to, or you can just put something else on. And I ended up putting this sticker on there, and I just left it on there. And so now, whenever I do my videos, there are a couple of comments where people are asking what mic I'm using or what is the necklace that I'm wearing. And so it's just one of those things that just drives engagement. If you have something a little bit different in your video that gets people talking, then it just drives a little bit more engagement. And I kind of like it as well, so I kept it. But it's a great microphone, that aside. It's a really good microphone, and even though it doesn't have 32-bit float or anything like that, I honestly don't need it. The only time that I would need something like that is if I was working on a client shoot, for example, which is very rare, or I was doing a personal project where I was doing a documentary, for example, which I haven't done for a little while anyway. And so for me, just for YouTube, these mics are perfect. I don't need 32-bit float recording, and they're perfect. They work, they're small, they don't weigh the clothes down if you do clip it to your clothes as well. And the M2S has a very unique style of clipping, which I quite like, and it's very discreet. So if I'm wearing a t-shirt, then I prefer to use that because I can just hook it onto the top of my t-shirt. So yeah, that is my setup. That is what I go for when I'm filming my YouTube videos. So don't forget to check out Artlist with the link in the description so you can get your 2 extra months free if you get one of the annual plans. And thanks again to Artlist for sponsoring this video. I've dropped links to everything that I talked about in this video in the description as well. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next video.